great amount of faith in this next gentleman. Of course, we have so much in. Head coach Ryan Day, thank you so much for giving us the time after practice today.
Of course. How you guys doing?
Did you have a canoe?
Yeah, I got a little crazy there. We had to bring everybody in, the lightning, so we got through it, though.
Escalated quickly, my friend.
Yeah.
You ready for Texas after that?
No, not even close.
It's funny how quickly all this happens, right? You blink, and then here we are, and we're starting camp off. I was just talking, Eric and I were talking, like, this is so different than 03 or 15. We had so many guys coming back, so many familiar faces. You got new coordinators, new quarterbacks, a lot of new faces, no Jack, no Travion, no JT, all those guys. And so in a sense, this is almost a brand new team. So I heard you talk about attacking versus defending national champions. To me, that's perfect, Coach, because this is a brand new operation coming out here.
Yeah, and a whole different season, starting with Texas and then building from there. When you look at the schedule and how that plays out, we had a team meeting last night and went through all that. Now it's not the time to focus on that, but last night it's good to take a step back to see, you start with that game, a couple non-conferences, bye week, and then we have that 4-game run there where we go to Washington. We're home against Minnesota, and then we go to Illinois and to Wisconsin.
Yep.
Then we're off. Then we have Penn State the rest of the way. So, and then once the season's over, then you have the playoffs. So, when you're in the NFL, you kind of look at it almost like quarters, and you kind of go, well, it's not the same, but it's similar that way because of the number of games we play. So it's good to take a look at where we are, but ultimately, it comes down to how we're going to get better every day in practice. And to your point, there's a lot of guys that haven't actually done it on the field yet. And I mentioned it this morning. I think about the movie Good Will Hunting when Matt Damon's talking to Robin Williams and back and forth, and Matt Damon was this guy who just had all this intelligence. He was really, really smart, but he hadn't lived life yet. Robin Williams had, and it's it's a difference. There's that artificial intelligence, and there's the real experience and intelligence, and so we got to get him out there and practice. And so it's a good start today, but a lot of work to do.
You mentioned that last year at this time when you joined us, we were talking about nobody had a clue what a 16 or 17 game season was going to look like. Now you do.
Yep.
What did you learn? Did you make any changes to preparation? What's different this time around now that you lived it?
Yeah, we sort of at this time last year thought long and hard about that, and a big part of it, we didn't get into it a lot publicly, but we went to the huddle. That was a big deal. Because it cut down on the number of plays per week, and then obviously cut down on the number of plays for the whole season. So that was something that we felt like was important. The next thing was building depth, and we went through it. I know some people talk about it, but when we lost Simmons in the Oregon game and had to move Donovan, okay, that was one step. But when we lost McLaughlin, that was a major blow. And so, now you're talking about 3 people in 3 different positions. And, it took us a week to figure that out down the stretch. And we didn't block very well, in my opinion, the Indiana game. Obviously, the Team Up North game, we didn't do a very good job at all. And then we kind of came together, made some adjustments, went to some other schemes that we felt fit that group, and then finally kind of got it back together again. I think that's going to kind of be the story. When you lose people, if you stay healthy, that's one thing. But when you lose people along the way, how are you willing or able to adjust as the season goes on with that number of games? And so those are all parts of the conversation.
You've been through a lot of these quarterback competitions. Obviously, you have a plan in place. You've been there, done that with these guys. I noticed today looked like you kind of split up the ones a little bit. So Jeremiah's with Lincoln, and then Julian's got Carnell, and split the running backs. What's your – I'm not going to hold you to it, but kind of what is your plan and timeline for all of this? Does the Texas game change that at all?
Yeah, I think it does, because you want to have a guy going into that first game, and we want someone to pull away and win the job, and then kind of goes from there. But you remember a couple of years ago, Kyle was ahead coming into camp. Devin pulled ahead for 2 weeks, not 2 weeks, but for a little bit of time, and then Kyle kind of ended up starting that first game against Indiana. And then that kind of continued through in practice all the way throughout the first really quarter of the season. Last year, I think the locker room knew Will Howard was our quarterback, and that was and sometimes with the locker room, so we're going to need everybody, but hopefully in the first game we're playing one quarterback, and we know who our guy is. But to your point today, we split the fields up. We're able to go to 120 players this year. That won't be the case moving forward. We're going to have to get closer to 105, which will be hard to do what we did today. But in a 15-minute period, we're able to get, almost 48 plays while we're huddling. So that's a lot of reps because these guys need reps.
Mentioned opening with Texas. It's just this thing that's just out there. It's such a 30 days away now.
Yeah.
how important is it to you we talk so much about what the future of the sport's going to look like. Isn't a game like that what this thing's all about, right? In the end, to play games like that?
Yeah, and then you have to also think about what makes most sense, for you to win the national championship. And, I would argue that if, we're not going to get the automatic qualifiers moving forward in the Big Ten, it's going to discourage us from scheduling these games moving forward. I think it's great for college football. I think it's good for a young team to have to, show up week one and then figure out where we're at. But, strategically, you're not going to see these games scheduled if we don't see more automatic qualifiers.
Yeah, we got to get that part done. We got to get on the same page because what makes it so special. Get you out of here on this one, and I think want to thank you because I noticed this 10 minutes before this thing kicks off. Carmen, Ohio hits. You got upwards of 1,000 people here watching. It's an NFL training camp, Brian. That's what this is.
Yep.
I mean, I was in Berea yesterday, and that's what it was. Mm-hmm. You did an NFL training camp. You guys have done such a masterful job of straddling what this place means to everybody and modernizing with the times that are a necessity.
Yep.
How have you done that?
Well, what we try to do is, do what's right by Ohio State. Taking into consideration our tradition of excellence, knowing that we've always been leaders across college football, but also knowing that we're held to a higher standard here. Just call it for what it is. I tell the staff that, and I tell the players that for a lot of different reasons, and so we take all of those things into consideration. I think it always has been this way. Woody said you win with people. So now more than ever, making sure we have the right people in the right spots is critical in recruiting on the staff, and then cultivating that and communicating at a high level. But as we've transitioned here this summer into the salary cap, soft or hard, we're still trying to work through that part of it. Like, we have to continually make these decisions that are going to have major impacts on our future. And so this is something that we constantly having conversations about to make sure we are always going to be leaders at Ohio State.
Tuck Ryan, so much new in college football, so much new with your team, new players, new leaders, new coordinators. Brian Hartline, Matt Patricia comes up from the NFL. How's it been working with those guys? I know it's early in camp, but just over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I really like our additions. On the offensive side, Tyler Bowen has been excellent. He's a really good communicator, very smart. He has coordinator experience. We all know Brian. Brian's, this is the next step in his progression. So the two of those guys working together is going to be important. Making that hire, having somebody who had coordinator experience in the run game, especially working with Brian, because his specialty is obviously in the pass game, but he's made a lot of strides in the run game. But having that was important when we hired that position. On defense, Matt Patricia has been excellent. Just ask the players, ask the recruits, ask the staff. He's got an unbelievable personality, and he's just kind of let that go here.
It's so cool to see his enthusiasm. Talk with his hands. That energy's infectious.
Yeah, and his intelligence is off the charts, and his experience speaks for itself. So it's again, when you talk to a guy like Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles or Kenyatta Jackson, ask them, and they'll tell you. You can't fool the players, so they're excited. Haven't played a game yet, but certainly, I think he's really stepped into a situation where he was the only new guy. The rest of the guys have already been here, and so I credit everybody on that staff for already having really good chemistry going into the preseason.
Coach, thank you, man.
You got it.
Good seeing you as always.
Absolutely.
Real pleasure.
See you guys
Coach
soon.
Ryan Day,
Okay.
national champion Buckeyes. Attack.